Peace and blessings. Have you ever asked yourself, where do I begin to learn about Black history? In fact, oftentimes I'm asked, what books do I recommend people begin with to start their quest for understanding and investigating history? People want to know why we are in the current predicament we're in as a people, not only here in America, but worldwide. So they ask, what books would be best suited to lead them on this discovery of self and understanding of their present reality? I have 6 books that I want to recommend. And with these books, I suggest that they be read in succession because information will build one upon another. Also, I want you to remember that when doing any kind of reading of authors, that all authors aren't equal. However, the authors that I'm recommending today, you should read every book they've ever written. These authors are worth their weight in gold. Also, you should remember that when you read any book, you should read it from a social political perspective. You want to understand the information also from a nation class perspective. You want to see yourself in the world as you are. You don't want to be the subject of someone else's reality, but you want to understand reality through your own cultural lens. The first book that I recommend is called Brainwashed by Tom Burrell. Although this book was published in 2010, it's a good work because it's simplistic. It doesn't have a lot of heavy jargon in it. The book explains certain cultural aspects that we find ourselves in today, some of the challenges we're faced with as a people, and he talks about the source of these challenges, why we are the way we are. Very good book. I suggest you begin with that book because it doesn't deal with a lot of heavy concepts. The next book I would suggest you read is by a scholar by the name of Nwalimu Baruti. Again, every book this author has published, you should get it and read it. It's a little bit more technical from the point of view that he deals with the problems we're faced with, the challenges we have in our lives from a cultural perspective. And I think that's important. We need to be able to look at ourselves and reality through our own cultural lens. As one of our scholars, Dr. Wade Noble, said, power is the ability to define reality and then have others use those definitions as if they were their own. Therefore, I would suggest that again, that we use our definitions to analyze our current predicaments, our current circumstances. Start with Brainwashed. Brainwashed deals with current, present day. It deals with a lot of the issues, again, we have as a people in popular culture, media, and just life in general, why we behave the way we behave. Mentacide, again, is an excellent book. It's a bit more technical, but he's coming from a cultural point of view, and he's going to use culture to analyze the problem. Burrell doesn't analyze the problem from a cultural perspective, but Baruti does. Once you read those two, you want to go back a little further in history. You want to begin with this book by Dr. John G. Jackson. This book was written in the early 1970s. This book is very, very well written, and it's simplistic. It's easily digestible. A lot of books sometimes become outdated, but I suggest this book. I still suggest that we read this book because of how it's written. You can read this book, you can flow through it. Work is very thoroughly documented. That's one of the main reasons I suggest this book. Not only that, but because also the book is very informative, easy to read. You can flow through it and you can gain a great understanding of African civilizations and who we are as a people. Right after that book, I would suggest you read this. This is The Destruction of Black Civilizations by Dr. Chancellor Williams. This is the book of all books dealing with the issue of what happened to us. This book is a must read. Again, I would say each of these books are a must read, but this one, every Black person must read this book. Dr. Chancellor Williams did a thorough job of documenting what happened to us and how we come to be where we are today. In fact, a scholar told me, a very close friend of mine, Kiara Cheatwood, told me, who knew Dr. Williams personally, told me that he mortgaged his home to pay for this book. So that in and of itself is an honorable endeavor. I would suggest you read that book next. This next title is called Deconstructing Aspects of the Social Constructions of Race and Racism in Western Culture. This book is written by Akinjide, Bonotchi, Montgomery. Very important work. This work deals with the concepts and ideologies that keep us trapped mentally here in America, and how the institutions that we go to, our colleges, our schools, everywhere we go, our healthcare system, how these institutions are supported and buttressed by ideas and concepts of white supremacy, and how these ideas and concepts, since we subscribe to them, keep us trapped and keep us as servants of white supremacy and even against ourselves. A very important work. That work will actually open your mind wide. So I would suggest you pick that book up as well. And the last one I would suggest is this work here by Dr. Fukuyama. It's called Self-Healing, Power, and Therapy. This book analyzes our condition and circumstance from the perspective of African culture, and it uses a lens of African culture to analyze Western culture, to pull out the problems that we have and to look at those problems through an African lens and hold one up as opposed to the other, to give us an understanding of why things aren't working for us today in this world. It's because of the way we live, our habits, our cultural norms, our social customs are disadvantageous for us, and we're working against ourselves actually. So when you read this book, it tells you how to apply some of those old world customs and cultural values, and you apply them in your life, and it will help you to solve your problems and to be better. In closing, I would suggest you begin with Brainwashed by Tom Burrell. Unfortunately, this is Tom Burrell's only book. I've waited for years. I hoped that this author would produce another work, but he didn't. However, begin with Tom Burrell's book, Brainwashed. Then start with Mwalimu Baruti's book, Mentacide. Right after Mentacide, you want to get Introduction to African Civilizations by Dr. John G. Jackson. Right after that, you want to get right into, now, Introduction to African Civilizations and Destruction of Black Civilizations, it builds. It's a great segue from one book to the other with your understanding, with the concepts, with his historical points of view. It's a good way to start from one book to the other. They kind of relate to each other. So start next with Dr. Chancellor Williams' book, The Destruction of Black Civilizations. And after that book, understanding that destruction, you want to get Akinjide Bonotchi Montgomery's book, Deconstructing Aspects of the Social Constructions of Race and Racism in Western Culture. And finally, you want to end with Self-Healing, Power, and Therapy by Dr. Fukuyama. I would like to say this before I finish, that I will also encourage you to study in groups. You will gain a better comprehension of these works when you study together with your family, with friends, and it teaches you discipline as well as working in unity with others. That way, this information can also grow exponentially when there's more than one person undertaking the task of study. So I would encourage you to study with groups because, hey, teams win. These books will be listed below. If you want to pick them up, they will be listed in a link below. Thank you. Peace and blessings.